Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Volleyball Officials Return to Competition webinar. I'm Lisa Brinkmeyer. I'm the Volleyball Administrator for the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union, and joining us also is Tim Keating, the Volleyball Officials Coordinator for the Girls Athletic Union. We thought it'd be advantageous for us to put this Return to Competition program together because there's a lot of differences this year for the 2020 season with what has been impacted by COVID-19. So we're going to go through some slides and we're going to have some discussion as we go between Tim and myself. We also have the Q&A open, so if you have questions along the way, please add those questions to the Q&A, and then once we get done, we'll answer any questions that are on there. This will also be recorded and will be on the officials website for you guys to reference throughout the season. Also share with other officials that this is on there. I know that the storm that went through on Monday has affected a lot of people's power and internet and ability to even watch this. So we are recording it and it will be on there. So pass the word on to anybody that you know that may be missing it today because of their unfortunate circumstance. All right, let's get started. Tim, you want to take over with a couple of the reminders?
Absolutely. Hope everybody's doing all right. We're going to get started with the officials pages. As most of you know, we're sticking with our School Today and Review this year. Our School Today, you'll be able to see the memos, which our plan is to do a memo every other week this season. We've got many video links that are going to be helpful and useful for different situations that are going to be put up there. And you'll see a video at the end regarding whistles that is a good video that we'll be able to see. Rules meeting is already up on there. The exam is already up. I know many people have already taken the exam. I've seen a lot of questions come through to my email for that. Study guide for that. Crew cards, which can be printed out and used, which are very handy for handing that to the scores desk and also coaches, so they have your information. And then any of our adaptations that we have for within Iowa. On Review, that's your ability to get paid through, especially through us for postseason, and any schools that are using Review. Your clinic status, getting registered for a clinic that we have, or just registering for the season. Eligibility status, making sure that you're postseason eligible, that you've met all the requirements, and then certifications, knowing that you've passed a clinic, you've passed the rules meeting, etc. We did mail out on August 5th the rules and case books. If you haven't received them yet, the Postal Service has been quite a bit bogged up lately. So give it a few more days, and if you don't receive it in a few more days, you can contact us at the office, and we'll see what's going on with that.
And just a final reminder, we are into our officials clinic season right now. We've had 3 officials clinics at Johnston, Winfield Mountain Union, and Lamar's. We have one this Saturday at Atlantic at 9 o'clock to 11:30, Atlantic High School. Cedar Rapids Prairie is scheduled for this Sunday. That one is to be determined. We're trying to find an alternate site for that clinic, which is going to be from 1 to 3 tentatively. So just watch the website for that, because I'm not sure where it's going to be held, because it will not be held at Cedar Rapids Prairie. Then we have one on the 18th at West Delaware at 5:30. And then the final one is at Algona, the 22nd, and that is at 9 to 11:30. And you can register for those in, as Tim said, our School Today account. Okay, moving on. We're going to talk a little bit about return to competition. Just so you know, varsity, sub-varsity, and junior high activities are approved to resume for the 2021 Girls Athletic Union activities. So you will be able to officiate at all levels if the schools that you work for are holding those activities at those levels. What we ask are all people, players, coaches, officials, spectators, and anybody else feeling sick or that have been exposed to someone sick should not attend or participate in competitions or practices. That's kind of our general theme for everybody that we interact with at the Girls Athletic Union. Those that we touch and talk to about sports, just say, if you're feeling sick or have been exposed, don't participate. The Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union strongly encourages all participants and spectators to practice social distancing and wear face coverings whenever possible. Again, we use the word strongly encourage. That's as strong a word as we can use because we can't mandate it. There will be PA announcements before and during matches, just encouraging people to social distance, just reminding them. Sometimes we start visiting and we lose track of what we're doing, so we're just going to remind them about social distancing throughout the matches. Also, we're having schools implement health screening for practices and games similar to what softball had to endure, and that's 100.4 temperature. If you've got 100.4 or above, then we're asking that you stay home and avoid any competition, practices, or contests. Pre-match procedures. Attendees for the coin toss are limited to one coach from each team, one captain from each team, the first referee and the second referee. All 6 individuals must maintain a social distance of 3 to 6 feet. And again, face coverings are strongly encouraged to be worn by all pre-match conference attendees. One of the suggestions from the National Federation was that we put it out in the middle of the court, separated by the net. Well, something that we found by having our experience with softball and baseball this past summer, because Iowa is the only state in the nation that has summer sports, and we were able to practice some of these things early on with actual events, high school events, and we proved that the officials and the players can easily, and the coaches, social distance, and that's what we're asking them to do on the sidelines. So you'll have that coin toss just where you always have done it. Just make sure you're socially distanced and also maybe have a face covering on. Rosters are to be submitted directly to the officials' tables before the 10-minute mark. Roster submission at the pre-match conference is suspended indefinitely. Basically, this is just to have one less set of hands touching it. The coach can turn it in to the score bench. The score personnel can have it just sitting in front of them. They don't even need to touch it. And then the official can come over and grab it as needed. Teams are required to bring their own volleyballs for use for warm-ups for away matches. And those volleyballs are going to be marked. Schools know this. Again, this isn't anything that you guys are going to have to worry about. So if a coach comes up to you and says, hey, we forgot our volleyballs and the opposing team won't let us use theirs. Again, this has nothing to do with you. We're just giving you a heads up on this. This is something for the schools to work out and to figure out on their end. We're just hoping that, again, this will help with the sanitization process where the teams will bring their own volleyballs. They'll have them and they'll know they're clean, and then they can take them home and clean them again. So this has nothing to do with you guys. You shouldn't have to monitor this. We just wanted to give you a heads up that teams will be traveling with their own volleyballs. Some more pre-match procedures. Teams are not allowed to warm up outside of the court near their opponents while their opponents have the court for the 6-minute portion of the 5-6-6, unless there is space on another court far away from the court that's being utilized. Usually teams have gone to the serving line and they have warmed up outside that line when their opponents are using their portion of the 6-minute warm-up. We're trying to avoid any sort of exposure, so we're not allowing that. We're making teams move away from the court when they're not on it. Again, this is nothing that you guys should have to monitor. This is going to be on the coaches and the local administration, but we're just giving you a heads up that that's where teams are going to be warming up maybe a little differently. It is permissible for those teams to share the court for the 5-minute ball handling portion because they will be distanced by the net. We're also asking to avoid spectator seating in the first 2 rows if possible. We're asking that as a suggestion, a recommendation. It is not a requirement. As you know, all gyms are different, and so not everybody's going to be able to have enough seating without using their first 2 rows, but our hope is if they do have enough to get those fans off those first 2 rows to help with social distancing from the players, from the fans, and the fans from the players. And we also are asking for no handshakes or fist bumps between players, coaches, and officials. During the matches, going back again, the supervision of these things that we're asking to be done are the responsibility of the home team administration. That is their job. We do not want you guys to have to deal with any of this. You've got enough on your plate that you shouldn't have to be watching anything going on the sidelines with teams, spectators, or any personnel. Pre- and post-game handshakes between teams are prohibited. Teams should acknowledge their opponent with a wave, a bow, etc. after introductions and or before the match. So teams can be introduced however they would like, and they can go line up in the middle of the court, or they can end up on their serving line, which is, we'd like to have them end up on their serving line, but again, it's their option. Once everybody's been announced, then a team can just wave or bow to their opponent. After the match, you can just release them back to their benches. Then they can go back and then they will acknowledge themselves, the team's amongst themselves. It's nothing you're going to have to worry about. Teams are not to switch benches between sets or for the deciding set. In the event there is a clear and distinct disadvantage, teams may switch sides, observing all social distancing protocols. So if there is a disadvantage in the gym, we're going to have the coaches try to figure this out first. And if the coaches can figure it out and agree that there is a disadvantage or that there's not a disadvantage, then there's no problem. If they cannot come to an agreement, then they will come to you and they will say, we think there's a disadvantage. Team B does not think there's a disadvantage. You will be the person to ultimately rule on that. Now, don't come in the gym right away and say, that's going to be a disadvantage with the lights coming in over there and go right to the coach. We don't want you to get involved in that process. We want you to stay as far away as possible until you're summoned to make a decision on that. Some things with a disadvantage would be maybe lights that are shining through one side of the gym in the eyes of one team. Maybe a disadvantage on the serving line. One has 10 foot and the other has 25 foot and there's a jump server involved. Could be a permanent basketball hoop on one side of the court. We don't really say the fans would be a disadvantage because they would have those anytime if they were switching courts and we were switching ends. So there's just a few things that we would deem a disadvantage. But again, that's only going to go back to you if the coaches come and have you make a decision on that. Again, during matches, bench personnel should observe social distancing as much as possible. Coaches, players, and bench personnel are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings while on the bench. All players may stand near the bench area, not just those in the active rotation, which has been our policy in the past. We're letting all players stand near the end of the bench to help with social distancing if needed. This isn't just a pass card for everybody to get to stand up. We're allowing them to stand if they need to be distanced from their opponents or even from the fans behind them. If the fans are sitting really close and the coach says, we need to get these kids away and space them out, then they will all be allowed to stand. The one thing that you guys should worry about on this, otherwise you have no worries, but the only thing would be if they are pushing their way towards the sideline and you need to they're getting too close to the court and doing excessive celebration with that rather than just being able to celebrate on a good play or to greet a player when they come off the court. So that's the only thing that you need to watch with that. All players must sanitize their hands before, after, during warmups, at all timeouts, between sets, and anytime they leave the playing court. Again, this is not something that you need to monitor. If you see someone walk out and they use hand sanitizer, there's no need to blow your whistle and have them do that. We're just letting you know what the policy is. What you can worry about and focus on are we're asking officials and coaches as well to sanitize their hands as often as possible, which this could mean you could have a bottle of hand sanitizer with you on the stand or on the score bench behind you. And we'd ask that you sanitize as often as possible, and we'll ask the line judges to do that as well.
Lisa, I'm going to jump in if you could go back one slide for us there. When we talk about all players must sanitize, how it's not our responsibility, a question that got brought up at the first clinic at Johnson was, do we extend timeouts because of the ability to, or the need to put hand sanitizer on? And my answer there was no, we're not going to extend timeouts because they have the ability to be sanitizing their hands while the coach is talking or while they're on the bench for their timeouts. So if you had that question, we are not extending any time for the timeouts. Be a little lenient on how fast you're pulling out that unnecessary delay card, however.
It's definitely a learning season with us, and especially those first couple weeks, there might be a learning curve with the teams using their hand sanitizer and trying to work it all in and still follow some of our guidelines. Good point, Tim. The host school must have at least 3 volleyballs to use for the in-game ball rotation to allow for volleyballs to be sanitized while not in use. The host school will be responsible for sanitization of the in-game volleyballs in the rotation. Again, this is just letting you know. This is not something that you need to monitor. If a team doesn't have 3 volleyballs out there, it's not something that you can say we're not playing till these get out there. You could remind them because we will want you to know where those balls are going to be during the match, if they're going to be on the score bench and who's going to be taking care of them, because we're going to say someone has to be assigned to that duty and we'll be constantly rotating them and cleaning them off. Then you can say, you know, we're waiting for a ball to come in, you can summons for it. We say frequently they will be used and switched out. Very frequently, timeouts, between sets. If there's a pause or delay, that would be longer than just a point. The ball can be switched out there. If it goes into the fans or the stands and it's touched by a spectator, we would ask for the ball to be switched out and sanitized. Again, this should not be a long process. It should be quick. Again, there will be a little bit of a learning curve as we start into it. At one of the last meetings, they asked about 3-ball rotation with the ball, kids using or ball, adults helping with that. Not every school is required to have a 3-ball rotation with people along the sides working it. We're just asking that there are 3 balls, at least 3 balls available to be used for that and be sanitized throughout the match. With the kids cleaning their hands, and the coach and the officials using hand sanitizer, and then also cleaning the balls frequently, we're hoping that we can deter some of the spread or exposure. Going on to social distancing. Players and coaches should practice social distancing of 3 to 6 feet when addressing the second referee and during substitutions. We think this is a great rule. They should probably keep their spacing from you always, and this will just ensure if they have questions or concern with you that they keep their distance from you. The players are encouraged to utilize the substitution zone closer to the attack line rather than near the net for, again, social distancing purposes between players in the R2. So make sure you give a little leeway on that. If they're not within the exact zone, they're just doing their part to try to avoid you and keep some spacing on that. So if there's some of those swinging wide to get in, just work with them on that. Attendees for the deciding coin toss are limited to 1 coach and or 1 captain from each team in the R2. All individuals must maintain a social distance of 3 to 6 feet. Face coverings are strongly encouraged to be worn by all coin toss attendees. So again, with the deciding coin toss, we won't be switching benches. Just like during the match, we will not be switching benches for that deciding set as well. If the teams do decide that there is a disadvantage and the official agrees that there is a disadvantage and they will be switching benches, the teams will be required to wipe down their area, clean it as good as they can, and then switch sides. Now we're hoping that this still can be done in that 3-minute process. If not, we might have to make some changes, and you might have to work with them a little bit on that if they are switching benches. But just keep that in mind that we're going to try to have them get that done in the time frame. The officials table. Score bench personnel should be limited to essential personnel, which includes home team scorer, libero tracker, and timer with a recommended distance of 3 to 6 feet between individuals. Again, this is our recommendation because all facilities are different, and we know that there's some facilities that have a large bench for multiple people to sit on, and there's some that have a very small bench. So we're just doing this as a recommendation to give a little bit of guidance and protect some of the score bench personnel. The visiting team personnel, score statistician, etc., are not deemed essential personnel and should find an alternative location. Again, if there's a couple tables available, they're welcome to sit at those tables, but if there's just that one space, we're going to limit it to the home team. Score bench personnel are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings as well. If you go up to a match in the score bench and they don't have their mask on, again, this is not your issue to tell them to put their mask on. We're just giving you this as a heads up of the policy. A few changes the National Federation provided for player equipment and uniform for this season. Face coverings are permissible. They can wear those during the match. Gloves are permissible to be worn during the match. Long sleeves are permissible, and long pants. The undergarments are permissible but must be unadorned and of a single solid color similar in color to the predominant color of the uniform top or bottom. They made some changes to the officials' equipment and uniform as well. Long sleeved all white collared polo shirts or sweater are permissible. Face coverings are permissible to be worn during competition. We're going to have a little bit of information at the end of this webinar that will talk a little bit about whistles and electronic whistles to go over this with you. Gloves are permissible to be worn by officials. Electronic whistles are permissible. We asked if you're using an electronic whistle, that you communicate that with the players and the coach at the pre-match conference. Have the whistle with you. You can sound it a couple times so they know what they're listening for, and they can pass that on to their teammates that an electronic whistle will be used, and they can also look for that during the serve. And again, we can't stress this enough. You are not responsible for monitoring activities on the sidelines, such as social distancing, hand sanitizing, symptoms of illness, and other such issues. This monitoring remains with the local school personnel. Here's just a few things that are general considerations for you guys to think about. One is to take your temperature prior to attending your competition. We ask that you do this in the morning. When you wake up, figure out that you have a temperature. It gives our host school and your assigner as much time as possible to get your spot filled, and that ensure that that match can go on. With the COVID situation, there are a few officials that have decided not to officiate. So we want everybody to make sure they do everything they can to help out the schools and your assigners to get those spots filled if you aren't feeling well. So take your temperature in the morning, and then we'd also ask that you take your temperature before you leave for the game, and check that. If you're 100.4 or above, you should notify the school and your assigner immediately. If you do not feel well and COVID-19 symptoms are present, notify your contracted school and assigner immediate again, and stay home. The worst thing we'd want to happen is for an official to expose a team, and I think that would probably hurt you guys a lot to have a team have to go into quarantine and miss competitions because of exposure. So please take that responsibility seriously. Also check with the school prior to your arrival if a changing area will be available to you. We have opened up for locker rooms to be used, but again, with this situation, they've had to maybe arrange some of their locker rooms, use different rooms for different reasons. So you might want to check when you call in advance, as we're asking everybody to do this year, before their match, the day before, 2 days before, whatever. Check in with that school, because they might have other things for you, as for example, what door you should go in. You know, maybe you have to have a mask to get to from point A to point B. Schools are allowed to require those. So please check in with the school, and they might have some different ideas for you that are different from what you've done in the past. We're asking that you bring your own supplies: water bottle, towel, hand sanitizer, face coverings, anything else you need that sometimes the school will provide for you. Schools that provide flags will be, again, they're able to provide flags. We're asking that they sanitize them and have them ready, but you may want to bring your own flags because you know the sanitization process with those. But again, bring your own supplies just in case. And we're asking that you wash and sanitize your hands upon arrival and frequently throughout your time working the contest or contests.
Hey, Lisa, if I could jump in, what we're asking also, in addition to contacting your assigner or your school immediately, if you do have a temperature, it might be advantageous to be proactive before the season starts to contact your assigner with possible open dates that you may have, if they don't already have those, or contacting some local schools for open dates that you have, so that if the unfortunate circumstance comes along that this happens to an official, they may have a list or a roster of people that are available already, and it won't take them multiple hours to try to contact multiple people to see if they're working. So it might help if you have time to send your open dates that you have to local schools and your assigners.
If anything you can do to help, we would appreciate it. A few more things here for considerations. Follow social distancing guidelines during pre and post-match conferences and during contests. Consider using an electronic whistle, as we discussed, and we will discuss further at the end of this. Do not shake hands or fist bump other officials, players, or coaches. We understand that you probably know most of the coaches you're working with and even some of the kids, but please don't fist bump them or touch them, high five them in any way. Officials are not responsible for monitoring activities on the sidelines such as social distancing, hand sanitizing, symptoms of illness, and other issues. Do you see what we're doing here? We're putting this in several times to make sure that you know that this is not anything that you have to worry about. This is going to be the responsibility of the coaching staff and school personnel. And finally, just reiterating about sharing equipment. Please don't share your equipment. We did get an inquiry about a plastic net covering. It was tweeted out. One of the colleges in the state of Iowa was using it for their practice facility. I did check with the National Federation. They talked with their Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, and they do not support the use of a plastic shield or covering on the net for contests. They said the plastic covering provided a false sense of security as space is still present above and below the net for aerosol to be dispersed. And from a competition standpoint, the committee also believed that the plastic would change the way the game is played at the net. So just so you know, plastic net shields and coverings are not allowed during competition. If you get to a match and they have that plastic shield up, they're not allowed to play with the plastic shield or net on the net. They'll have to take that off for competition. All right, Tim, Whistle 101. Do you want to take us to that?
Absolutely. I'm going to show a video that was made by a gentleman. He's from Iowa. His name's Ken Corum. He's in charge of the Kansas City, the Greater Kansas City Officials Association. His website will also, that we're going to be on, also has many of the videos that are very good for you to take a look at. But we're just going to look right at the whistle. And there's 4 different techniques that he's going to show. One with the whistle, the actual whistle under the mask, and then the other with the electronic whistle, and the couple different ways to that you can hold that electronic whistle. So we'll go ahead and get this started. We'll play a clip out of this video. I'm also going to pause. He is backwards with his signals, so don't worry about the signals and wondering his backward signals are.
And last night at the Lamar's clinic, some of the officials were talking about that there are masks that can accommodate a whistle underneath it.
And if you have to talk to a captain, you can kind of take the whistle out of your mouth and let it sit in the mask. And you can talk to the captain like this.
So as you can see, he has the lanyard around his wrist. This would require to keep that in that hand the entire match, unless you switch sometimes within the match. This is one that I'm not recommending to have for the electronic whistle, as you'll see, there's a neck lanyard that's coming up after this. Notice he keeps the whistle in his hand the entire rally on the neck lanyard. He'll set the whistle down and he'll be able to use full hand signals without the whistle in his hand. We'll just take a look at a couple second referee techniques as well. Everything's very similar to the first referee.
5 for 12.
Notice that he stays back. He doesn't go up to the substitutions. He stays back away near the sideline.
And again, just like before, if you need to talk to a captain or coach as the second referee, you can pull the whistle out of your mouth like this, or just let it hang there so you can talk and then put it back in.
Okay, so those are the options. We had it asked last night at the Lamar's clinic, as Lisa was telling me before the meeting had started here. They had asked if the electronic whistle could go around a belt loop, and we recommend that that doesn't happen. We want to be able to hold that whistle up in front of us so that it can be seen by the server, it can be seen by everybody, that you have that whistle there, and it's easier to hear. It'll be up higher so that the sound can be heard. Again, to reiterate what Lisa said, if you're using an electronic whistle at the captain's meeting, give them the sound that you're going to be used. I know some of them have 3 different sounds, and they may have had the match 2 nights prior to that or over the weekend that a different sound was used, so they heard something different. So let them know the sound of that electronic whistle.
And Tim, when using that whistle, should they do anything differently as far as holding it a little bit longer, having their signal different?
Yes. Yep. So you want to make sure that, a lot of times servers will have they'll have a ritual that they don't look. Some of them have said they don't even look at the official because it's a superstition. So you have to be able to hold that signal a little bit longer. As we bring our beckon for serve, if you want to hold that beckon just another second longer so that they know by using that electronic whistle that you've already beckoned for serve, feel free to do that. We want to make sure that they know that the whistle is blown. They know that we're ready for serve, that they know that the rally's ended.
All right, thanks, Tim. Again, there'll be a little learning curve with this. At the clinic last night, some of the officials had the whistle underneath their mask. You could hear it clearly. It was not a problem. Other officials had their electronic whistle and they used that, and that's fine. The question came up about, are we going to require masks being worn? Really, the biggest reason to wear a mask is the R1 standing up on top of the stand. They have their whistle and they're blowing the whistle. Aerosol droplets are a big thing with COVID-19, spread and exposure. When you're standing up there and you're blowing your whistle, it's going on both teams. So if you're going to be using your whistle, we would strongly encourage you to have a mask over top of it. And if you're using an electronic whistle, obviously there's not going to be the aerosol droplets. We would still encourage you to wear a mask. But again, the aerosol droplets are one of our bigger concerns for the R1 and the R2 using a whistle. Some final thoughts, just to keep in mind that things will, hopefully not, but things may be changing as we push through with the COVID-19 status. Hopefully our regular season stays as is, and hopefully the postseason will just carry on as we've done with the regular season. But just keep in mind that there may be some changes, and keep your eyes out watching the Our School Today spot where Tim's going to be having some of the memos and other information posted. So please just keep referencing that. If you want additional information, you can contact the Iowa Department of Public Health. There's the phone number and the email address if you want additional COVID-19 guidance. Also on our website, IGHSAU.org, there is additional return to competition information for teams and coaches, just general information for fans and spectators. Again, you shouldn't have to worry yourself with any of those details, but if you want to read up on them, you're welcome to. Again, this webinar is going to be recorded. It'll be on our website either late tomorrow or Monday. It takes a significant amount of time to download it and get it up there, but it'll be on our website in the Our School section, and you'll be able to reference it all season long. Now, let's go to some of your questions. And can you see those, Tim?
I've got mine open up on my own, so.
We'll just go through them and we can answer them together if need be.
Okay, we had our first question here you'll probably cover this, but on the orange paper that received in the mail with the, I'm assuming with the rule books, says that sub-varsity matches are to switch sides between sets. We're going with what we talked about there, that it's got to be a clear, distinct advantage. Let the coaches decide that. If they cannot, then we'll go ahead and we'll have, you can make the decision on that.
And that sheet was the Iowa adaptations. So we just printed the Iowa adaptations as is. And then made our COVID adjustments to that. So that's why it said that sub-varsity would switch sides. So they won't be, they'll be following the same guidelines as the varsity. Why can't the IGHSAU mandate masks? It's just not something that we're able to do. It's a facility decision. The local school gets to make those decisions just as they had with softball. For spectators, each school can mandate that masks are worn, that spectators have to wear those. They can mandate where people sit. They can mandate that each player on the team gets 3 people in and that's it. They can say they don't want any fans. That's just a local school decision on that. And we don't have the authority to make that decision. Okay, it says, as with softball during a warm-up, if a ball goes from one side of the court to the other, is that team's responsibility to get the ball, no one else? We're going to encourage line judges not to chase down balls. Obviously, every situation is going to be different. We would like for the players to go get those. But again, we're not going to mandate anything because some schools will have ball kids that can help out with that. Some schools won't. And we're not going to say that it has to be that team's responsibility. We'll encourage the team to tend to the balls on their own side.
It could also in warm-ups, it could be just a reflex to grab that ball if it rolls under the net during the shared time and give it back to the other team. But again, as we've put on multiple slides, it's not our responsibility. That's on the coaches to make sure that they're handling that.
Yep, thanks. As far as warm-up goes, we'll tell the teams it's a given that the balls are going to roll back and forth. It's going to just happen, and just kick the ball back over, have the ball go back to the other side, and again, that's why we have a lot of the hand sanitizer available. Another question is, can a disadvantage be determined after the match has started or between sets? We're going to say no on this unless something has happened. A light breaks or the basketball hoop won't go up now, or there's something major that has happened that becomes a disadvantage. If it's something major, then you can. We just don't want to get in the habit of, we're not switching sides and all of a sudden we're switching sides for the last 2 sets, and we'd rather just keep it consistent throughout.
An example that would be you would be able to do this would be, if early in the season when the sun's still up, possibly when the matches are starting, and let's say the sun's setting and it happens to crack through through a window and create a disadvantage. That's something that we certainly would understand having to change in match.
Is there any worry that hand sanitizer will cause the ball to become slippery? Will humidity affect this? Part of this is just some living and learning we're going to have to do. We're not concerned about hand sanitizer. Obviously, the kids' hands are going to be dry right away after they put that on and back out on the court. So hopefully these kids have dealt with hand sanitizer now since March. They should be experts on them, and hopefully there won't be any issues with that. Humidity, again, we're just going to have to go with it and see what effects there are. If it does have a negative impact on the ball, maybe they're just going to have more than 3 balls in the rotation. But we're going to want the ball to be sanitized and hands to be sanitized throughout still. Where should the game ball go during timeouts? To the line judge, R2, or ? That is going to go to the person that's in charge of the balls, the person that's sitting there that's sanitizing the volleyballs. That's where the ball should head over. And that person's going to hopefully be on top of their game, and they can move towards the R2 or the line judge, whoever has the ball. But that ball can be sanitized during that timeout, and then a new ball can be put back in for that. Good question. It says, can I not bring my own flags since there will be many people touching them, different in each match or set? You don't have to bring your flag, but you should make sure that the school has a flag if flags are going to be used. We are not mandating, and back me up on this, Tim, that flags be used. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. If you don't feel comfortable taking your flags and the school doesn't have any flags, then we can go with hand signals for line judges. That's not a problem.
Yep. But if you don't want to use your own, maybe they'll check with the school. A lot of schools do have those to be used. Are there face masks with the Iowa Girls logo on it? We don't have any right now. If you saw us at state softball, a bunch of us were wearing one that they're given to our staff to be worn, but we don't have any of those right now. That's something I'll pass on. I think our marketing director, Tom, is hidden behind that Girls Athletic Union logo at the top. So hopefully he's listening to this as well.
We will look into it and pass that information along if we can make those available.
I think we already talked about masks being required. They're strongly encouraged, like I said. If you're using a whistle, we strongly encourage you to have a mask on. It says there was talk about Saturday tournaments and side-by-side courts. Any concerns and suggestions for Saturday tournaments? Again, just remember, this is not something that you guys would have to worry about. If you go in and there's a side-by-side court, this is nothing where you should say, you can't do this, don't play, because again, it's just a recommendation by us. And that was for a couple reasons. Some of those side-by-side courts have chairs of the opposite courts back to back. So we want schools to maybe spread those chairs out, put them on different sides, so teams aren't sitting right next to a team behind them. Rather, maybe they could be on opposite sides of the court. Or if there's a facility that has 3 courts, they could leave that middle one open. Or if they have 2 facilities, gyms within their facility, that they maybe could move one match over there into the other gym and keep the other court empty in the main gym that might have 2 courts, just trying to have a little less exposure. But it's not mandatory. It was just one of the suggestions we had for Saturday or weekend tournaments, or even for multiple level matches. If a player wears long sleeves or long pants, do all the players need to also? If so, do they need to match? No, the whole team would not have to wear long sleeves or long pants. They would just have to abide by the undergarment being unadorned and matching the predominant color of the uniform. Just wanting to confirm that officials are not required but encouraged to wear masks either as the R1 or R2. Again, that is correct. They are strongly encouraged to wear them. Now, you might have to be required to wear them entering the facility. Some facilities will say you have to have a mask on and it's mandatory, so you would have to wear it as you enter the facility and go to your changing room or going to the score bench. So you should definitely have a mask with you. From the answer to the changing sides, if there is an advantage, will they change between each set or only the deciding set? If there's an advantage or disadvantage, they will change every set, including if there's some discrepancy, they will change every set, including between the deciding set. If there's no disadvantage, they would just stay on their side the entire match.
Now, if there is an advantage and they are switching sides, this is one thing that you guys will be responsible for. We've talked about having the teams go on the opposite sides of the court around the court. And this would be not just for the 6 on the court. For this case, this would be the entire team to go around on the opposite side to create social distancing, so they're not walking right next to each other.
Again, there's a couple websites here, which is a good time to talk about our apparel merchandiser Image Sport is no longer in business. So we are in the works trying to find another company to help us with the polos, the white polo we'll have. Currently, the embroider that is on those shirts is it says IGHSAU, and it has our logo. We're going to be switching that logo to a round logo that is the same in all of our other sports. It's going to be a round IGHSAU girl logo. It won't be mandatory this year. It probably won't be mandatory next year. We're going to have a couple of years to roll that in to make sure that people don't have to rush out and buy a shirt. But we're working on that still. We don't have all the details yet. And we'll let you know as soon as possible. But again, I think someone put a couple websites here for you can check on merchandise, maybe the masks as well.
Again, I also saw a question, and we can answer this now about patches and when patches will be available. We are working on those patches as well, and we'll let you guys know when those are available.
Again, someone's asking about encouragement or requirement on a mask. Again, we strongly encourage a mask to be worn, especially if you have a whistle in your mouth and you're using the whistle because of the aerosol droplets. And it says, where can we get electronic whistles and face masks? You'll just have to look on the website right now, or the internet right now, for electronic whistles. I know that Ted Mosier had some at VB Gear. He is in Cedar Rapids, so they were hit significantly by the storm, so you can check in that, but just keep that in mind as well. Face masks. I don't know where the face masks were that had a specific space for the whistle. Someone just mentioned it last night at the coach or the officials clinic that those were available. Tim, have you heard anything about where the gear might be?
I have not heard where we can get a whistle or a mask that has any of the whistles. It looks like somebody had just typed in something for whistles or for masks available, but I know there are some areas that were out there that some people had volleyballs printed on them, or different area, different places that had it. I'm not sure if those were whistle specific or if they were just branded with a volleyball on them or not. But there's plenty of options out there, plenty of places on the internet that you can find that provide masks.
And one of the things we just say about the masks, you don't have to have the same mask as your R2 or as the line judges. Just make sure your mask is appropriate is the only thing, and that it fits you so you don't have to keep messing with it throughout the match. Is the Cedar Rapids workshop for the 16th still going to happen? Again, we are not going to be having that at Cedar Rapids Prairie. We're trying to find another venue at this time. Tentatively, the clinic is still going to be 1 to 3, but we don't have the venue yet. As soon as we know, we'll put it out there and let everybody know the new location and the time of that. Fox 40 has really good electronic whistles, is what someone put in there. Yep, they do. They have a good whistle. I think the one that I've heard has 3 different settings to it. So again, that's why we say make sure that the coach and the players at the pre-match meeting know what you're going to use, and you can make sure there's no confusion when it comes time for the match. What is a possible site replacing Cedar Rapids Prairie? We're working on it. We're going to hopefully be in the area. Obviously, there's not a lot of schools right now in the area because of the destruction with the storm. So we're trying to keep it over there as much as possible. But again, I was hoping to have that done this afternoon, but we're still trying to get a hold of a few people and firm things up. What if I have met the requirement for minimum number of matches needed to be eligible to officiate postseason, and matches are canceled and I fall below the minimum requirement? Will I still be eligible to work postseason? Yes, we'll take things into consideration. That's kind of what we talked about with COVID-19 status. There might have to be some changes to it, but obviously we want you to get as many matches in as possible, but we'll take all things into consideration. Another question about Cedar Rapids Prairie. Hopefully you guys also you can be reminded that there is the West Delaware Clinic will be on the 18th from 5:30 to 8 at West Delaware High School too. So those of you that are on the eastern side of the state, that could be another option, but we are still working on the 16th to have a clinic in the Cedar Rapids area. When will the patches be available for officials? Like I said, we're working on that. Because the company is no longer in business, we had to get a new patch made, designed, and put into manufacturing. So we're working on that. I thought you could maybe get it turned around in a week. You can't. So we're trying to work on that as fast as we can. Hopefully that'll be in the next week or two. Tom, have you heard anything more about that?
They're in production now. The estimated timeline was 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm hoping for that 2-week timeline as opposed to the 4-week timeline.
Okay, so if you are wanting a patch, just contact Sherry Tegmeyer in our office. Sherry, it's SHERRY at IGHSAU.org. Sherry at IGHSAU.org. I'm sure most of you have talked with Sherry at some point. She's magnificent and works with our officials. She can get a list going, and when they come in, she can get those to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, Sherry has mentioned to me that she is taking orders for them. So please do that. If you are in need of a patch, just reach out to Sherry.
Again, I'm working to get electronic whistles and face masks. Go on the web and look around to see what you can get. We'll try to look as well and post some things that maybe we can find. Again, some of that's personal preference of what mask fits you best and what you're using it for. I do know that electronic whistles have been back ordered. Some of them have been back ordered, so you might have to be patient with that. But if you're thinking about electronic whistle, I'd encourage you to get moving on that as soon as possible. Someone wrote, if I have 9 games set or scheduled, I'm guessing he means, and 5 get called off, can I still be able to do state tournament? Again, we'll be looking at all possibilities for state tournament qualification if matches are canceled. Obviously, if people start canceling matches, that might be for a reason, and we'd have to look at our postseason overall, but we'll take all of it into consideration.
And Lisa, I do want to give John the opportunity here. John did raise his hand in the attendee here. John, I'm going to give you the ability to talk if you want to clarify that question, or if you have any additional question on that, go ahead and speak. Okay, I think we must have covered it, Lisa. So we'll just leave it there.
Well, John, if you have more questions, and anyone else, if you have questions that we didn't answer today, please feel free to contact Tim, which is tim@ighsau.org, or myself, which is Lisa @ighsau.org, and we'll get your questions answered about this situation or anything else that you may have throughout the season. On behalf of the Girls Union, we'd love to thank you for the time you put in. It's a lot of extra hours. We know that. There's a lot of windshield time that you spend going to matches. All that work that you do greatly impacts the Iowa Girl, and because of that, we are eternally grateful for you. And the time you spend away from your family and your friends officiating volleyball, please know that it does not go unnoticed. We definitely appreciate it. And if you have questions on any of this, let us know. Tim, do you have anything to add?
I don't. Just reiterate or just second what you said, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us and learn a little bit more. Obviously, those of you that were here, and we have many dedicated officials, but those that are here are really dedicated to know what's going on and where we're at with this season. And like Lisa said, it's going to be a very interesting season. It's going to be a learning experience, but I know that if anybody can do it, it's us, and we are ready to dive in here on the fall.
So our final thought is just to do your part. We're asking the coaches to do their part, the fans to do their part, the players to do their part, and the administrators to do theirs. So we're asking officials to just make sure you do your part, and we should have a successful season. Thanks so much, and best of luck.